Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First of all, what we have witnessed here so far in these budget debates, generally and specifically, is a manifestation of a group of people who are badly bruised, battered, brutalized, and certainly the 2020 general elections would have created traumatic experiences for the APNU AFC, who were booted out of office, and what you secured as a result of that experience is a concussion, you know, brain concussion, brain aneurysm, and it is all showing up here today in the presentations that we have witnessed so far in the 2022 budget debates. I heard the last speaker, Honorable Christopher Jones, and you know, it is about these the group tends to play on these nice sounding words. It sounds nice. Oh, the budget is disrespectful to people. Oh, the budget didn't do this, and oh, the budget didn't do that. But monies that were budgeted for people's welfare and development in this country, the very honorable member under the SNET program ended up with portions of that money for himself, like many others on that side. And that is what is disrespectful. It is disrespectful, and one must wonder, what did the soldiers and the police do to APNU AFC that you withdrew from them the 1 month tax-free bonus that they were getting for so many years under the People's Progressive Party civic government? And it is $2,000, approximately $3,000 on the tax threshold, times 12 for the entire year. It is another effort to put more disposable income in the hands of people across Guyana. We have done it, we are doing it, and every single measure adds up to more money for people in their pockets. It is not about just a tax threshold increase. It is also about all the other measures. It is about what we have done in the first place in our first budget cycle of 2020. Remove those 200 burdensome taxes that you over there, all of you, placed on the backs of poor people in this country. We removed it, and it freed up more disposable income for people. And what we have done in our measures was to make sure that we pay attention to what were the hardships faced by the people of this country. And we have given from 2020, the cash grant for every household. We have given back to our pensions by pensioners, restoring the water subsidy and the electricity subsidy. We have made monies available. If you forgot that the public servants at the end of the year we had given monies to, we have also in 2021, and like we will do in 2022, paid attention to the welfare of people in this country. We love people. We love every single Guyanese in this country. We have demonstrated that for our term in office. since coming in 2020, we have demonstrated true and abiding love for people. Because every single measure that you see in these budgets that we've put forward so far, is about people. It's not about making any one of us on this end rich. It is about making our people's lives better. How do we put food on their table? How do we help their children go to school? How do we help them to build a house? How do we help them with university education? How do we help them with an online education? That is what it is all about. I'm going to tell you how. We have in this country to recognize that development is not anything magical. That to get to development, it has to be incrementally done, where steps and measures like are contained in this budget and the previous budget will get us from one point to another and from the other point to another point, and that is what development is all about. But if I have you, if you only had your hands, because I hear all morning, all money, we have all money, all money, all money, and I know that's what bothers you a lot. The fact that you can't put your hands on the oil money. And as God has it, he knows what he does. And the change in 2020 was certainly for the better. Certainly for the better, because God knows if you mistook 18 million US signing bonus as a gift, oh Lord, what would happen with the oil money? Oh Lord, what will happen with the oil money? I can imagine it would be a tragedy for the people of Guyana. But we, as we have been all the years, we are a government that first of all understand the needs of people. We take the needs of every Guyanese into consideration. We make programs, policies, measures to address those problems and those needs. And that is what we will continue to do. Mr. Speaker, before I go on further, let me say that first of all, before I proceed, to enlighten members of this august House, on the other side of the aisle, of course, on what real and palpable development looks like, and why they will remain stupefied, an appendage to those very seats over there, where they sit at the moment. For countless years, you will remain there. Please allow me to congratulate you and your noble staff for defending and upholding the sanctity of these hallowed halls in the face of the unprecedented lawlessness and the ghettoism from those who would much more suited to be providing service on animal farms, eschewed even by our local farmers. Your courageous stewardship, Mr. Speaker, of this National Assembly will be studied and referenced by students and parliamentary scholars alike across the Commonwealth well into the future. Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party Civic rescued this nation from its slippery slope of deprivation and chaos at the hands of the coalition pervertment, not government, pervertment. In 2020, all of Guyana We rescued this country in 2020 from the poverty. The vast majority of our regional neighbors, our international partners, and the progressive community of nations exhaled and exclaimed, gargantuan sighs of relief. Our steady, decisive application of visionary leadership from day one has steadied the sinking ship and circumnavigated Guyana back onto its transformational path. From the emergency rescue budget of 2020 to the repair and restoration interventions of 2021, we in the PPPC have brought our country to the cusp of where she needs to be in her new wealth-generating dispensation. Mr. Speaker, once again, the citizens of this country are at the center of our national budget. Once again, Mr. Speaker, people's empowerment for national transformation and transformation itself have begun the hallmarks of the halls of governance of this country. Thanks to our humble hands, our hard-working and visionary team, Mr. Speaker, the short and painful days of sanctimonious gangsterism are behind us. The days of aimless aloofness, visionless arrogance, and downright ineptitudinal depravity that paraded the greedy green walls of power between 2015 and 2020 have been exercised, and the sails of hope of our beloved Guyana have set sail with the $552.9 billion course across our 10 administrative regions. This will effectively lay the foundations for the prosperity and the solidification of our nation's trajectory towards growth among the League of Nations, changing for a better course for a better world. Mr. Speaker, throughout these presentations, the tale of the fox who couldn't get the grapes, look down there, couldn't get the grapes, so it's sour, will become vividly applicable by my friends and political foes on the other side. We will witness unabashed desperation, pointless banter, and the usual disruptive behavior on becoming an unworthy of elective leadership, but we will not be dissuaded. We will not be daunted, neither will we cower to their desperate machinations as they struggle to retain some semblance of relevance in these hallowed halls that they shamelessly desecrate over and over. Mr. Speaker, they will employ frivolous and wicked tactics in an attempt to distract the nation from the desperate and awkward power grab parade forcing its way to these chambers in its characteristic schoolyard bully boy fashion. They will try all that they can. They will try all that they can, Mr. Speaker, to distract from this people-centered, transformative budget as a means of masking their own spectacular failures that are being made more obvious by the day. As people begin to open their eyes and realize the dreadful mistake of putting an incompetent, self-serving, and unfit group of people as the APNU AFC into office, which saw them went through 5 miserable long years. Mr. Speaker, in spite of these schoolyard shenanigans, our erudite genius of a finance minister, Dr. Ashney Singh, my friend and colleague, has delivered yet again a budget for the ages. Dr. Singh has given us a budget that reaches to the core of our nation's heartbeat, to answer her yearning for the revolutionary energy that will catapult her onto a new path. A path, Mr. Speaker, that our forefathers dreamt of. The path that leads to individual empowerment for every Guyanese. The path that leads to family fulfillment. That path that leads to community development. And that same path that will deliver national transformation. Budget 2022, Mr. Speaker, will provide world-class education to another 6,000 or more Guyanese through our Gold Scholarship Initiative. It will create the means to home ownership for another 10,000 or more Guyanese. And it will deliver unprecedented levels of social services to every citizen across this country. The education, health, and productive sectors will be reinvigorated this year with resources that will allow my colleague ministers to imagineer to new heights and lay the pillars that will carry the weight of modernity. With regards to infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, the urban and rural landscapes of our country will undergo significant realignment and expansion in the build-up process for a new and modern Guyana. Mr. Speaker, no new taxes, a hallmark of a caring government. Raising of the income threshold, a hallmark of a caring government. Reduction of excise tax on gasoline, a hallmark of a caring government. More money for the pensioners, a hallmark of a caring government. More money for school uniforms, a hallmark of a caring government. More money for school children, a hallmark of a caring government. More money on a monthly basis for public assistance, a hallmark of a caring government. More money for dialysis treatment, a hallmark of a caring government. More money for small businesses, a hallmark of a caring government. And the list goes on and on and on and on. But Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me at this juncture, having listed some of the people-centered measures for my long-term opposition colleagues in those benches, not to illustrate a few of the clearest examples that highlight the night and day difference between the PNC and Friends and the PBPC on this matter of a caring government. Year after year, for 5 long years, Mr. Speaker, the PNC-led government imposed taxes upon taxes upon taxes upon taxes on the poor people of this country, piling them up at one after the other like an albatross around people's neck. Water tax, data tax, road tax, food tax, clothes tax, farm tax, wash bay tax, chicken foot and plantain chip tax, curry and roti tax, and all the taxes that you could imagine that one could lump on the backs of poor people was as a result, and not to exclude black pudding tax. Mr. Speaker, that is why we stepped up and rescued the people from the green tax demons that were possessing this land. We were focused and were forced to act on the people's behalf and cut their term short with a big fat no confidence motion because the people wanted it. And in them, Mr. Speaker, because one more year of green tax albatross round people's neck, and our women would have been delivering green babies that look like tax. And we had to rescue the situation because it would have gotten that bad. Mr. Speaker, even their own supporters, they punished. You remember? A lot of their supporters, they punished. Let's just look at what they did in Linden. Mr. Speaker, the strong and proud people of Linden were completely abandoned by the petty and vindictive policies of the government and the David Granger administration and his acolytes, simply because a few of his comrades from Linden gave him the middle finger on his planned policies. You remember that? Just before he assumed office in 2015. Mr. Speaker, Granger held that petty grudge against the entire town. And you know the story goes on. And the people of Linden suffered terribly because of that situation. Mr. Speaker, where the PNC-led coalition got over 15,000 votes, that was in Linden. In 2015, I'm talking about 2015. Nevertheless, don't let me get distracted by the Manny Pauls and the whoever they are. But in return, Mr. Speaker, the only reward Granger and his PNC acolytes, Aubrey Norton and the likes, were willing to offer Lindeners for the 5 long years was an insulting marching order to go and plant breadfruit. And they were a caring government. You were so caring, yeah? So caring. Most interestingly, Mr. Speaker, the 5 years of vindictive punishment for Lindeners went unabated and unchallenged, as the so-called leaders from Linden who surrounded Granger in his power circles, Norton, Honorable Member Figuera, Valerie Adams, Sharp, Patterson, Yearwood, all did absolutely nothing to get Granger to change his vindictive, uncaring stance towards the Lindeners. And I want to say, perhaps they were in agreement with him, because his empowerment advisor Norton launched a national evening education intervention program which never saw the light of day in his own backyard, Linden. Even Norton thought that the people of Linden were undeserving, Mr. Speaker. So let me remind the people of the scary government, APNU AFC, and what you really were. The PNC-led housing minister at that time, Lindener, Valerie Adams, Sharp, Patterson, Yearwood. And then see how much names she got? You know what kind of people has got all sorts of names, right? Built 5 scrawly houses for Lindeners from her whole tenure as housing minister. And never afforded a pack of seeds as much to any Lindener when she became Minister of Agriculture. While the vocal youth, poor people, and activists.
The Honourable Chief Whip is right.
Mr. Speaker, I know the other member is stating Ms. Valerie Patterson Sharp, who is not in this house to defend herself, with some stinging allegations too.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable Minister, I'll have to ask you to withdraw those comments as the persons are not present in the chamber to defend themselves.
I will make sure that I deliver a copy of the tape to her, Mr. Speaker. As soon as the PPPC government returned to power, Mr. Speaker, the call center we opened...
Honourable Minister, we were guided by the Honourable Manzoor Nadir in this very chair that, Mr. Maipol, I can speak for myself, thank you, that any member, per the standing order, who is not in the chamber to defend themselves cannot be spoken of. I will ask you to withdraw those statements.
I make reference, Mr. Speaker, I stand guided, and I make reference to a term of the APNU AFC under the Housing Ministry where nothing was absolutely done for the people of Linden, and I stand by the fact that nothing was done for the people of Linden. I stand guided for the rest of my presentation, and as soon as the People's Progressive Party civic government returned to power, Mr. Speaker, the call center we opened before 2015 in Linden, which they closed and left empty to rot for the 5 years, was restored with more than 100 persons becoming employed in our first year, with dozens more to be employed this year. That's the hallmark of a caring government. This budget, which caters to the need of all the Guyanese people, all the people of Guyana, Mr. Speaker, including Lindeners, will rehabilitate the entire Linden-Suzdijk Highway. Again, a hallmark of a caring government. This budget will give Linden a new multi-million-dollar industrial estate, the hallmark of a caring government. This budget will expand the hundreds of acres of soybean cultivation currently underway in Region 10. It will construct hundreds of affordable houses for Lindeners, hallmark of a caring government. It will facilitate construction of a multi-million-dollar steel factory, a cement factory, and of course, construction of the first leg of the Pan-American Highway, which will run through the mining town, the hallmark of a caring government. This budget, Mr. Speaker, will facilitate the construction of a 5-story modern mall at Suzdijk. It will pave the way for the creation of a brand new city on the Linden-Suzdijk Highway and bring the Linden-Suzdijk corridor into the national transformational focus like never before, the hallmark of a caring government. Mr. Speaker, this budget will open the eyes of the people of Linden and every other part of this country. Guyana is ours, and the people of Guyana belongs to all of us. And we are committed to working hard in every single way and on every single day to make sure that we bring development to the people of this country. The AFC, Mr. Speaker, no more will the people of this country entertain an APNU AFC government. They went through 5 long, hard years. For many, it was a serious mistake, a serious regret on their part. And we, all of us on this side, with the people of Guyana, the other citizens of this country, will continue to educate them and to keep them abreast on all that we are doing and to remind them on what you did not do. It is so funny that it is only now that you sit on those seats over there, that you recognize so much could have been done with the opportunity that you had, that so much needed to be done. You had 5 years, and those 5 years went wasted, all focused on just a few. And that is what upsetted so many Guyanese. And the PPP, nevertheless, is here to make sure that we can work with our people and we could have development on a steady basis so that people of this country can live their true potential and we can see a real developed Guyana. The budget, Mr. Speaker, will demonstrate unequivocally that the People's Progressive Party civic government is the caring one, hands down, caring for all the people, creating employment for all the people, empowering all the people, and opening up economic opportunities for all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, allow me to talk about the public affairs department within the context of the transformative budget. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that you would appreciate the realities that the fulsomeness of all these moving parts in our active pursuit of national transformation would create along the governance continuum. And as such, Mr. Speaker, I'm equally persuaded that you would agree that such realities necessitate more efficient and effective management of our public affairs and communication in general. For these very reasons, Mr. Speaker, the department in the Office of the Prime Minister continued and concluded a comprehensive capacity and competency review of the state information and media services in 2021 and commenced the hardest process of retooling our agencies and upskilling our personnel to better deliver services to the people in the context of an advancing society. To this end, in 2021, the department, in collaboration with the Industry and Innovation Unit of the Office of the Prime Minister, delivered information communication technology training to some 550 youths in Sophia, Enterprise, Hararuni, Luluni, Luziknan, Rheinfeld, St. Cuthbert's Mission, Silver Hill, Better Hope, Wales, Agricola, Windsor Forest, Enmore, Amilus Ward, Tamari, and several other communities along the East Coast and West Bank corridors.
For you to go along to conclude, you'd need 5 minutes extension, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the honorable member be granted 5 minutes to complete
Honorable
his
Minister,
presentation.
please continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the engagements were extremely successful at equipping those participants to better engage with their government and their communities, and will therefore be scaled up to reach larger swaths of the country this year. Mr. Speaker, the process of reorienting the state media away from what was the sycophantic whims and fancies of the failed former government and its band of propaganda cheerleaders back in 2015 to 2020 to a more professional, autonomous approach to public communication service also began in earnest last year. We engaged more than 100 personnel in expert industry capacity building sessions while we realigned the operational structures accordingly, and that will continue to happen during 2022. Mr. Speaker, the task of building a network of direct communication interface between the government and its citizens also got underway in 2021. We will expand this, and there are several regions in which the program will go so that we can help our citizens and help our people to get government information and development information on our development prospects at every level, because it is important for the people and in keeping with the constitutional requirement. Mr. Speaker, this year, as we implement the largest and most transformative national budget to date, the Department of Public Affairs will focus on the adaptive creativity paradigm of the state media. We will come into sharp focus because it is important that we continually work with the state media to provide training and to be able to give them exposure, practical and other levels of exposure, so that we can create the best professionals in the state media. So we'll be broadening the scope of the information coverage and reach, even as we seek to make the daily programming more dynamic. The state media programs will become more adaptive to social trends and dogmas. I now come to our flagship undertaking for 2022, Mr. Speaker. Already, and in a few weeks, we will fill the void for the world-class industry skills and qualifications across the local spectrum with the introduction of the Media and Communication Academy in collaboration with the world-renowned online platform Coursera. Mr. Speaker, through the Academy's continuous media education window, registered learners will be afforded the opportunity to gain international certification and elevate their professional profile to accredited specialist or expert practitioner based on successful completion of prescribed cycles of learning. Mr. Speaker, I am confident that this facility will quickly become a game changer in the local industry across both state and private media. As we seek to upskill, further professionalize, and transform the fourth estate into one that is more responsive to the evolving digital future and the national development agenda of our country. Mr. Speaker, Guyana can ill afford rampant Wild West disinformation schisms and schemers running unleaded opposition gasoline, seeking to derail progress, divide our fragile society, and destabilize our fledgling democracy. The public affairs of this country must be managed in a way that safeguards citizens' fundamental freedoms, while at the same time protecting others from the vagaries of misused and abused freedoms like we see on the opposition side. Those freedoms that are devoid of the crucial element of responsibility. We cannot and will not sit idly by, Mr. Speaker, while alternative designer facts and deceptive machinations of loose cannons and madmen run amok in fulfillment of narrow, self-fulfilling, destructive, and unpatriotic agendas. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, all the relevant and applicable laws of this country will be upheld and enforced without favor and ill will to protect the stability and integrity of our hard-earned democracy. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, we will seek to make the management of the public affairs and communication sector of this country everybody's business. We will forge ahead with our programs to build the one Guyana against the backdrop of a caring, all-inclusive approach to governance, bolstered by our unprecedented, transformative agenda that benefits all the people of this country, every single Guyanese. With those words, Mr. Speaker, I thank you and commend Budget 2022 to the National Assembly.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, we have 2 speakers remaining on today's list, so we will take them to conclusion and